Chapter 41 Can't Wait. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Baron remembered that Bonnie's cousin, Viscountess Chris, had said that she knew many editors and could introduce them to him. He asked strangely. Bonnie, doesn't Mrs. Chris know many editors of novel columns? Then why didn't you ask her to introduce them to you before? Because at that time I had not written a novel for a long time, and I once took a novel I had written and said it belonged to a friend of mine and gave it to two of the editors. They were not very optimistic about it, so if it was in this way, I don't want to get published because of my connections, which will only make readers complain about me. After all, I trust the professional vision of those editors. Bonnie's answer did not surprise Baron. From the time he had been in contact with her, he could also tell that the other party was a relatively strong girl. Just like when she was writing this novel, she had a strong attitude toward herself. The requirements are also very high. Actually, I made an appointment with Mrs. Chris to meet the editors. Maybe I should not tell them who the author of this novel is. I'm sure they're going to go crazy because it's such a wonderful story. But even though Bonnie said this, to be honest, Baron himself didn't really have much confidence in his heart. Although in his previous life, Downton Abbey was a phenomenon in both TV series and movies. But the novel was launched after these hits. Now that Downton Abbey was first released in the form of a novel, and at this time in 2002, will it still be successful and welcomed by everyone? Baron will know rationally that this kind of subject matter will not be too popular with the times restrictions, but if it is really going to be launched, it will inevitably make you a little uneasy. By the way, I almost forgot, Bonnie, this is for you. Really? Bonnie was very busy at work, and she only took time out to see Baron today. When she was about to leave, Baron took out a bouquet of flowers and handed it to her. Bonnie was very pleasantly surprised after receiving this large bouquet of roses. She smelled the fragrance of the flowers deeply. It's so beautiful. Thank you, Baron. I like it very much. Just like what Baron said to Bonnie, after seeing the manuscript that the other party had written, he made an appointment with Bonnie's cousin, the Viscountess Chris, to meet and talk about the publication of the novel. Interestingly, when Baron talked about this on the phone, Chrissy said that she originally planned to get her hair done the next day, around the afternoon, and if Baron was convenient, she could have an interview. Do your hair. After all, the other party was a married woman, and Baron didn't want people to misunderstand him, so he agreed. Madam, your new hairstyle is very beautiful, you look like a little girl. Oh. Your Highness the Duke, do you mean to say that I was very old before? Of course not. You have always been young. You don't even look like a married person. After all, he needed to avoid suspicion, so instead of meeting Chris in a public place, Baron made an appointment at his home, well, just to avoid suspicion. Coffee or tea? Madam. A cup of black tea would be nice, thank you. Today, the Viscountess is wearing a long dress with contrasting black and white colors. The close-fitting cut makes her exaggerated lines even more obvious, especially when she sat in front of Baron. Through the hollow lace tulle under the neckline, she could clearly see the deep trench inside. This is, seeing the manuscript on the table, Chris asked. Has the novel been finished? Not yet, but Miss Bonnie is very efficient and has already written a large part of the first part of the novel. Chris reached out to the manuscript, paused briefly, looked at Baron and asked. Can I take a look? I've always been curious about this novel. Of course, I also want my wife to judge. Gently picking up the pile of manuscripts, Chris opened them with interest. At the beginning, Chris's expression was a little careless, but after she read 2 pages, she turned to focus. The speed of reading the manuscript gradually slowed down, and her body changed from leaning back at first to lean forward slightly. She didn't even notice when Baron's valet Ramos came in and put their black tea on the table. The room was unusually quiet. In Baron's sight, Chrissy's posture was a feast for the eyes. When the Viscountess turned to the last page and saw the end, realizing that the manuscript ended here, she couldn't help but sigh, with a look of reluctance on her face. Is that all there is? Chrissy blurted out, and when she looked up, she was startled. It turned out that Baron had stood behind her at some point. The distance between the two was extremely close. When she looked up just now, she even felt herself leaning on his shoulder. "Superior. You are really attentive, ma'am," Baron said in Chrissy's ear. She could even feel the other person's breath blowing on her earlobes. She couldn't help but feel as if electricity was passing through her, and her heartbeat accelerated. "This novel is great. Whether it's plot or writing, I haven't read such a fascinating novel in a long time." Chris put the manuscript on the coffee table, saw the tea in front of her, picked it up and took a sip, covering up her recent gaffe, but the faint blush on her face could not be dissipated for a while. "I'm relieved to hear Madam's comments like this. I heard from Miss Bonny that Madam is a top student at Royal Holloway Girls' College." Baron walked around nonchalantly, returned to sit down in front of the Viscountess, and said to her, "Of course, it's also Miss Bonny's literary talent. I have also read her previous novels. The advantages are the delicate and beautiful descriptions, but the storytelling is still very lacking. As for this novel, what is actually impressive is the fascinating plot of the aristocratic era, and the detailed description of that time. These dukes and highnesses have made great contributions." Speaking of this novel, Chris's words are full of praise. "It's a pity that the novel hasn't been finished yet. Now I can't wait to go to my cousin's place to read what she writes later." "The name of the novel is Downton Abbey, right? Is it based on the Chatsworth Manor in the Duke's home? Woolen cloth?" "Yes, madam, the scenes in the manor in the novel are based on our family's manor. Now I really have the urge to go there and visit." "That is my pleasure, madam. You can come to our manor to stay for a while at any time. Chatsworth welcomes you." In response to Baron's invitation, the Viscountess responded with an elegant smile and said, "I now believe that if this novel can appear in the world, it will definitely become popular in the whole of England. It has been many years since there has been such a true description of the novel of aristocratic life. It is still that fascinating era. Any advice on this, ma'am?" Chris pondered for a moment and said, "As for national newspapers, I have met the editors of the Daily Telegraph and the Independent, but I recommend meeting the editor of the Daily Telegraph first." "Why?" "As far as I know, the situation of the Independent has not been very good in recent years. Sales have been declining. Although it is still being supported, some speculations about them have always existed. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much." Chapter 42 Radical Strategy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Chris's introduction, Baron understood why she said that, in the British newspaper industry, there is a distinction between broadsheets and tabloids. The so-called broadsheet newspapers generally have larger page sizes and carry more serious news, and are represented by the Times, the Independent, the Daily Telegraph, and the Guardian. The so-called tabloid, Terraloid, generally has a smaller page size and publishes mainly sensational news. Its main representatives are the Sun, Mirror, Daily Star, Daily Express etc. Well, the so-called sensational news refers to gossip news, social focus, exposed beauties, politician scandals and other things that people particularly like to see. The Independent is the youngest national newspaper. Since its founding in 1986, it has used independence as its rallying cry. Unlike other newspapers that have a fixed political orientation, this newspaper was once deeply loved by intellectuals and white-collar workers, with a daily circulation of 400,000 copies at its peak. However, in recent years, the Independent has been the most difficult of the four major newspapers in the UK. Its sales have often dropped by more than 10% year-on-year compared to the previous year. In the past few years, the newspaper has adopted various tactics, such as changing the editor-in-chief, raising the price, etc., but it has been unable to reverse the business decline. Rumors often surface that the newspaper office will close, the newspaper will be sold, or the newspaper will be reprinted into a tabloid. Benham Group, the parent company of the Independent, used debt-for-equity financial restructuring to survive a crisis last year, but the newspaper's decline has not stopped. Compared with other newspapers such as the Times, the Daily Telegraph and the Guardian, the circulation of the Independent is far lower, which is why Chris did not recommend that Barron publish the novel in it. I can help you contact Mr. Thornton, the editor of the Daily Telegraph. I believe he will definitely be interested in this novel. Seeing Chris talking and about to take out his mobile phone to dial a number, Barron quickly stopped her. Wait a minute, ma'am, I'd like to speak to the editor of the Independent first, is that okay? The Independent? Yes. Barron said calmly. I think that although the sales volume of the Independent is slightly lower now, relatively speaking, it can also pay more attention to the novel Downton Abbey and have the motivation to use more resources to promote it. After all, they will also hope that this will drive sales, doesn't it? Although I think this choice is not the best, if you wish, Your Highness the Duke, I will call Mr. Whitney, the editor-in-chief of the Independent, and recommend your novel to him. Thank you very much, ma'am. Chris's phone happened to be connected at this time. Hello, Mr. Whitney. I'm Chris, but, long time no see. As she spoke, she glanced at Barron. In her eyes, Barron seemed to feel a bit of amorous feelings. DS Capital's office is in the City of London. The City of London, referred to as the City of London, is one of the 33 administrative districts of Greater London, England. It is located on the east side of the famous St. Paul's Cathedral in London, covering an area of 2.6 square kilometers, also known as the Square Mile. Because there are a large number of banks, stock exchanges, gold markets and other financial institutions here, it is also called the City of London. This is also the main reason why Barron puts DS Capital here. After all, DS Capital itself is the main body used by Barron to make financial investments. It will be more convenient in the financial city, of course. London is one of the most important financial centers in the world, and the city is the financial core of London. The rents for office buildings in this location are also sky-high. But it is also true that being able to squeeze into this elite 1 square kilometer as the company's residence can also show the strength of DS Capital. We are currently using the funds in our account to build positions. The initial purchase of NetEase stocks has already cost £2 million. The average purchase price is 95 cents. We currently hold approximately 3.15 million shares of NetEase stocks. As Daisy introduced to Barron the current positions and positions of DS Capital, Barron also learned about the investment situation of the funds he put in the company's account. When I first bought NetEase shares, its stock price was still below 80 cents. However, with the purchase of DS Capital, of course, there will be other buyers among them. The price of NetEase stock began to gradually rise. When they completed the position, NetEase's stock price had exceeded $1.10, a full 37.5% increase from their initial purchase price. After all, the total circulation of this stock is only over 30 million shares, and their purchases have exceeded 10% of the circulation. In terms of other investments, they are currently long on crude oil futures and gold futures with a margin of 20%, and will continue to reduce the margin in due course, which means they will increase their leverage and are expected to eventually increase the leverage amount from about 5 times. Increased to about 10 times. Daisy still had some opinions on this at first. After all, although the prices of crude oil and gold futures are considered stable most of the time, at least they are more stable than the stock market, but if there is any black swan event, then the two will have a relatively large impact. Fluctuations, crude oil prices, in particular, are very easily affected by news. A tenfold leverage means that if the prices of the two fall by less than 10%, their investment will be liquidated. However, Barron was still impressed by the prices of crude oil and gold during this period. They were initially stable and then accelerated upward, and did not fall close to 10%. Therefore, under his insistence, such a move was carried out. An adventurous operation. Finally, there is the investment in the U.S. stock market and the British stock market, with a total of £21 million. Currently, more than £15 million have been invested, but no leverage has been used yet. After all, most stocks will have a wave of recurrence in the third quarter of this year. Over time, leverage of less than 5 times will be gradually added. The only exception here is Amazon stock. It is expected that a full £10 million of the £21 million will be invested in this year's strong rising stock. Currently, more than £8 million of Amazon shares have been purchased. Later, I will continue to buy up to £10 million, and start to increase the leverage to increase the profit of this stock. I still think your plan is too radical and risky, boss. As Daisy spoke, she looked at the Nasdaq market trends and the London North Sea Brent crude oil market trends on the screen. But since you are so confident, then I will strictly follow your plan. I'm afraid my heart will be under tremendous pressure during this period. After all, with leverage, we control hundreds of millions of pounds of asset sales. Trust me, Daisy, and you're going to have to get used to this sooner or later. It's better sooner than later, isn't it? I'd rather it be later, my team isn't together yet. She saw Baron spreading his hands with a relaxed expression, and said. It's your money anyway, boss. By the way, the other thing about your assistant is that I have received some resumes and selected the 3 most suitable ones based on certain conditions. When are you going to meet? Is one side confirmed that the data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 43 Interview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I happen to be free today, Daisy. They are all in London, right? Let's make arrangements and see if we can have an interview in the afternoon. Okay, I'll contact them. When Daisy went to call to contact him, Baron looked at the resume information she handed him. When he turned to the second page, he was stunned for a moment. It was not because the photo above looked very beautiful, but because the other person his appearance is obviously Chinese or Asian. Baron saw the other party's name, Laura Wang. It seems like it really is a Chinese name. With some interest, Baron looked at the other person's resume. He indeed came to England from China to study. He had a very good academic qualification and graduated from Cambridge University. Speaking of which, Baron almost went to Cambridge to study at that time. After all, no matter what his grades are, the relationship between the Cavendish family and Cambridge is still very deep. Baron's ancestor, the 9th Duke of Devonshire, once served as the president of Cambridge University. The Lucy Cavendish College in Cambridge, where Laura Wang graduated, is named after the daughter-in-law of the 9th generation Devon Hill, a family member who was committed to female education. Lucy Cavendish College is one of 3 women's colleges in Cambridge and admits only female students. Thank you for your visit. If you pass the interview, we will notify you within 3 working days. Watching Daisy send the second interviewer away, the rather enchanting lady did not forget to give Baron a secret look before leaving the house. Baron stretched and couldn't help complaining to Daisy, who came back to him. Daisy, these people you chose, are not really looking for lovers for me. I can do anything for work. Hearing Baron imitate the tone of the interviewer just now, Daisy rolled her eyes at him. Maybe this is what damn men like. You know, these 2 ladies are both senior secretaries. F***K, I want an assistant who can handle complicated things, not a plaything. If I hadn't known you for 2 or 3 years, you used to know all the virtues and you would have really believed in you. Although she thinks so in her heart, Daisy will definitely not say this out loud. She still needs this job. How about I ask the last lady to come over? Is that Asian? Inform her to come over. When Laura Wang came in, Baron's eyes lit up. It's not that she is more beautiful than the women interviewed before, but she has an elegant and virtuous temperament with oriental characteristics that is rare in British women. Hello, Your Highness the Duke. Laura Wang speaks English very fluently, with a standard London accent. Hello, Ms. Wang, I see that you are from China, right? However, to the surprise of this Chinese interviewer, the young and handsome British aristocrat sitting in front of her actually spoke very fluent Chinese. This scene also made Daisy sitting next to her look confused. She couldn't understand what Baron just said at all, but with her intelligence, from the identity of Laura Wang and the strange pronunciation, guessed it might be Chinese. The key is, when did Baron learn Chinese? Yes, I was born in China and grew up there. After college, I came to London and have been here ever since. In addition, your Chinese is very good, Your Highness the Duke. Laura Wong sincerely praised Baron's Chinese. She felt that if she hadn't seen the words spoken just now by the authentic British noble with blonde hair and blue eyes, she would have thought they were spoken by a native Chinese. I have some Chinese artworks at home, and I have been attracted to the culture behind them since I was a child. In addition, I once dated a Chinese girlfriend, so I learned Chinese at that time. Maybe I have some language talent. After all, it was impossible for the other party to know that there was a soul from China in Baron's body. Baron also gave a more reasonable introduction to the fact that he could speak fluent Chinese. In fact, among the many girls that Baron had dated in his previous life, there were indeed Chinese Americans. It was just that the guy at that time had no intention of communicating verbally except for some kind of communication. During the conversation, Baron also learned that Laura Wong's Chinese name was Wong Wanting, and she was born on the bank of the West Lake in China. It was also because this was the first time Baron met a Chinese after coming to this time and space. Wong Wanting has now become a British citizen, so he couldn't help but chat with her. Next came the formal interview process. And Baron also began to resume talking to Wong Wanting in English. Ms. Wong, I saw on your resume that you have a double degree in business administration and finance from Cambridge University. After graduation, you also worked at Deloitte. This part of your resume is very good. It can be said that your career prospects are very good. What makes you how about applying for the position of personal assistant? You must know that this job is not easy, and the salary is not much advantageous compared to senior positions in Deloitte, one of the top 4 firms. To be honest, I have participated in interviews for other positions before this, including some big companies. However, it is not easy to get a job recently, and I was idle for 3 years without a job. Even if I am like the previous job at Deloitte was a bit embarrassing at my current age, especially given my status. Wong Wanting's answer was very candid, and there was no specific connotation in it. Baron could also understand that in a company like Deloitte, when Wong Wanting was younger, she could enter basic work and slowly get promoted. But she has been away from work for 3 years, and at her age of nearly 30, she is going to interview for this kind of company again. Basic positions have no advantage over young people, and senior positions will lack qualifications because they have missed the 3 years during the critical promotion period. If she were a man, it would be better, but if she were a woman, and she was of Chinese descent, then the chances would be even less. The reality is like this: all kinds of discrimination will not appear on the surface, but those with weak voices will become obstacle. This is also what I want to ask: why did you have a 3-year career gap? Because I got married at that time, Your Highness the Duke. Because my ex-husband's career prospects were better, I decided to take care of the family with all my strength. But later, after the final divorce, I needed to start working again. Do you have children? Please forgive me for needing to know this, because you know that as a personal assistant, you need to be on call at any time. It can be said that you don't have much private time, so if you have a family or children that need to be taken care of. I understand, Your Highness the Duke. I am alone now. I have no children and no family. I think I can have more time at work. It can be said that through these conversations, Baron has a general understanding of Wong Wanting's situation. Although she is 28 years old and has no advantage over the other 2 applicants in terms of age, Baron feels that age is not that important, at least 2 or 3 years ago. The age gap is not decisive yet. He was quite satisfied with other aspects of her situation. Last question, Ms. Wong, when can you start working? Wong Wanting was stunned for a moment before she realized what Baron meant. She had passed the interview and was hired. I can do it now, Your Highness the Duke. There's no need to be in such a hurry. I have an appointment tomorrow. I'll give you the address of my apartment. Just meet there in the morning. I hope you can get into the mood as soon as possible. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 44 Big Move. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Do we still have £6 million in our account? Because whether it is stocks or futures, we all carry out leverage operations in the form of margin, so although our current total positions have reached £27 million, the margin used is not much. If we use funds, we can still use at least £2,000. More than £10,000. Afraid that Baron was unclear, Daisy patiently explained to him, but I don't recommend doing this, because if too much money is withdrawn, if we face an emergency that requires a margin call, then our positions will be very dangerous and there is a possibility of liquidation. Of course, Baron knew all of this. He thought for a moment and said to Daisy, I shouldn't need so much. I am planning to conduct a short-selling operation on US stocks in the near future. I hope to get 10 times the leverage for this short-selling plan from Barclays Bank. For stocks, they generally can only grant a maximum leverage of 5 times, but it is not impossible. After all, our cooperation with them is larger than that of ordinary users. Boss, how much funds are you prepared to use for this short sale? £5 million is enough. That's not a big problem. Then go talk to them. Because DS Capital's current investments in the securities market will take at least half a year to a year if you want to see results, and before Baron knew it, the projects that needed to be carried out now required a lot of funds. The family trust fund couldn't come up with any money, which forced him to constantly think about what could be done in the short term. Opportunities to profit. After recalling the news about the securities market during this period in his previous life, he really thought of one thing. A stock was about to start plummeting recently. This was a good opportunity to short sell and make profits. So Baron prepared to use this news to make some extra money in the past few days. According to his calculations, combined with the market value of the stock at this time, if 10 times leverage was used, then £500 of funds would be more appropriate. It will not have much impact on stock trends. This is what was available at short notice about the Independent and the newspaper's current owner, Independent News Media, INM. It has to be said that Yulia can indeed be called a workaholic. Sometimes Baron even suspects that she only has work in her life. After notifying her the day before yesterday to help check the matter of the Independent, early this morning, I came to Baron's apartment and handed him the thick information in my hand. Have you had breakfast? Ms. Moore, you can have some together. The bread I just baked here tastes good. Thank you, Your Highness the Duke. I have already eaten. You can do as you please. Just as Baron was looking through the information in his hand and eating breakfast, Ramos came in and said to Baron. Your Excellency, there is a lady named Laura who asked you to meet. That I checked the time on my watch. It was just 7 o'clock. My new personal assistant was still very motivated to work. Let her come here, Ramos, she will be my personal assistant from now on. Okay, Your Majesty. After Ramos left, Baron faced Yulia with a somewhat puzzled expression and nodded. Ms. Moore, you should have heard just now. This Laura Wong is my newly hired personal assistant. You may need to contact me frequently in the future. Following Baron's words, Yulia's eyes fell on Wong Wanting. She was wearing a grey professional suit today without any special modifications. This made her a good impression, and the other party's gentle temperament, which also made Yulia relieved. She was really afraid that Baron would find some voluptuous asterisk thing to take with him, which would simply become a laughing stock in the aristocratic circle. At the same time, Wong Wanting also nodded friendly to Yulia. Laura, this Ms. Julia Moore is the manager of our family trust fund. You can communicate with her on matters related to the family industry. After helping the two of them make introductions and let them get to know each other, Baron asked Wong Wanting. Laura, you haven't had breakfast yet, you can come over and eat together. I've already eaten, Your Highness the Duke. Well, you can sit with Ms. Moore and talk about the family business and get familiar with it as soon as possible. The Independent was founded in 1986 by 3 journalists from the former Daily Telegraph. In the first week of its establishment, circulation reached 500,000 copies and stabilized at 330,000 copies a month later, but by the late 1980s, the newspaper was in dire straits due to disagreements among its founders and lack of funds. Since 1994, the Mirror Group and the Irish Independent News Media plc have jointly controlled the Independent. After 1998, I&M became the sole owner of the Independent. It can be said that the Independent is currently the weakest of the 4 major national newspapers in Britain. Not only is its circulation declining, but also financially, the newspaper has been struggling in the quagmire. According to analysis, the Independent has suffered significant losses for several consecutive years. Last year, their losses exceeded £10 million for the first time. It has been previously reported that I&M intends to sell 2 newspapers with serious losses, the Independent and the Sunday Independent, so that they can get rid of these 2 burdens and use their funds and energy to develop other businesses. And it's not like no one has been in contact with I&M, but because they couldn't agree on the price, mainly how to solve the huge debt that the Independent currently bears, the deal ended up being abandoned. Your Highness the Duke, if you want to understand the information in the Independent, you don't want to. At this time, Baron had already devoured his breakfast. He was not too restrained by aristocratic etiquette in front of the 2 ladies. He wiped his mouth and said to Yulia leisurely, "I have such an idea, but I still have to talk to the other party before I can decide. But the financial situation of the Independent is very bad. The debt borne by the other party may now exceed £20 million. Moreover, the newspaper has used many methods to escape the continuous losses. That's why we need to talk to the other party. Don't worry, Ms. Moore, I won't act blindly. By the way, how is the investigation over at King's Cross?" Baron's method of changing the topic to King's Cross was still very effective. Yulia immediately replied, "We have indeed discussed the purchase of several plots of land. Although the plots of land are not large and do not exceed 1 hectare, they were originally scattered pieces of land such as hotels, clubs and rental apartments, but these are already the most valuable ones. I'm willing to sell it, and it's not far from the land where our gas tank is located. What about price? These are residential sites with complete procedures, so the price is relatively high. However, even if a premium is given, it is still at least 1/3 lower than land in other more prosperous areas of London." Baron is still very satisfied with this result. "Very good, Ms. Moore, continue to follow up. I hope to be able to buy all the possible plots in that area. I am going to make big moves there. As for the funds, don't worry about this. I will take care of it. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much." Chapter 45. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Whitney, the editor-in-chief of The Independent, is a short, slightly fat, middle-aged man wearing glasses. "It is a great honor to meet you, His Highness the Duke, and this beautiful lady. Mr. Whitney, this is my assistant Laura. I am also a loyal reader of The Independent. I am very happy to see you today." They met in a cafe in Canary Wharf, and the headquarters of The Independent was in an office building less than 100 meters away. After taking their seats, Baron said to Whitney, "Mr. Editor-in-Chief should know the purpose of our visit today. It is about a novel." "Yes, Your Highness the Duke, I am very interested in that novel describing the life of the British aristocracy in the old days, especially after Mrs. Bute strongly recommended it to me, saying that it was the most fascinating novel she has read in recent years. I hope it doesn't disappoint you too much, but I have every confidence in it." Following Baron's words, he gave Wong wanting a look, and the other party took out part of the Downton Abbey manuscript from the briefcase and handed it to the editor-in-chief Whitney. Just like the last time the Viscountess read this part of the novel, in the corner of the cafe where they were, the only sound left was Whitney turning the pages of the manuscript from time to time. After a while, Whitney let out a sigh of regret. He had finished reading the last page of the manuscript. When she raised her head again, Whitney looked at Baron with admiration in her eyes, just like looking at a peerless beauty. Thinking of the good reputation of the British corrupt country, Baron couldn't help but feel goosebumps about the editor's performance. Fortunately, the other party was not really coming towards Baron himself. He said excitedly, "This is really a good work, and the plot makes people addicted to it. Moreover, I believe that your noble background, Your Highness the Duke, adds most of the convincingness to the description of this work. I believe that after it is published, it will cause a sensation. So you are also optimistic about the publication of this novel, right, Mr. Editor-in-Chief?" "Yes, Your Highness the Duke, I will personally facilitate this, and with the current quality of this novel, this will not be an obstacle at all." Baron took a sip of coffee. His expression was in sharp contrast to that of Editor-in-Chief Whitney. "But there is another question. Mr. Editor-in-Chief, apart from you, several other newspapers, including the Daily Telegraph, are very interested in this novel. Your newspaper does not have an advantage here. You should also know that the business conditions of your newspaper have not been very good in recent years." As soon as he said these words, Whitney's expression changed from the excitement just now to silence. You must know that the Independent itself was founded after the 3 editors of the original Daily Telegraph left. In addition, over the years, competition, the relationship between the two parties is definitely not good, and the fact that the Independent currently ranks at the bottom among national newspapers in sales also made Whitney slightly embarrassed after Baron brought up the Daily Telegraph, but at this time, he just regarded Baron's statement as a negotiation strategy with himself. After all, a novel is not only serialized publication, but also other promotion and subsequent publication, including copyright, and the distribution of these benefits. There is room for discussion. Your Highness the Duke, you can rest assured that even now, the influence of our Independent is still not bad, and we can give the most comprehensive promotion to this novel." Faced with his words, Baron remained unmoved. He shook his head slightly and said to Whitney, "Mr. Editor-in-Chief, in fact, when I meet you this time, in addition to matters related to the novel, I am also planning to communicate with you about the future of the Independent." "What do you mean?" After all, he is the editor-in-chief of a major British newspaper. At first, Whitney might have been excited to see such an excellent novel as Downton Abbey, but at this moment, he has realized something. It seems that His Highness the Duke, the purpose of this trip is not that simple. I have said before that the Independent has no advantage over other major national newspapers, but if I buy this newspaper, it will be completely different. I also heard that I&M is preparing to sell the Independent. The headquarters of the newspaper will be moved from London to Dublin, Ireland. For the Independent, this is not a good thing. Once it leaves London and goes to Dublin, then the Independent may never be a mainstream newspaper in Britain. As a loyal reader of the Independent, I don't want this to happen. What's going on? I first met the Duke of Devonshire just because he had a novel he wanted to publish, but now, suddenly tell me that you want to buy the Independent directly? Do you want the situation in life to be so exciting? Sorry, Your Highness the Duke, I'm afraid you need to talk to our boss about this matter. I really can't help. As editor-in-chief, Whitney knows the situation of her current newspaper very well, but will it improve if we change the boss? Others won't say it, but the Duke of Devonshire in front of me. It is true that I met you this time because of this novel. Mr. Editor-in-Chief, as for the purchase of the Independent, it is not that I need you to do anything. I just want you to know that as a supporter of the Independent, I hope to use my own power to change the status quo, which has reached a time when it needs to be changed. I hope that after buying this newspaper, I can get the support of employees like you who love this newspaper, that's all. At this time, Baron gave Whitney the feeling that he was already very confident in buying the Independent. Or was there something else going on behind the scenes that he didn't know about? If this is really the case, then I will work hard for the rebirth of the newspaper, but there is one thing, Your Highness the Duke, I hope you will not be offended, that is, it was said that your family's financial situation is not very good, and with all due respect, the Independent is burdened with a lot of debt. In addition to changes, what we need more is funds. Baron shrugged and said nonchalantly. As a media person, Mr. Editor-in-Chief, you should know that news reports always need to be based on facts, but unfortunately, many reports now are not like this. Do you think our Devonshire family has a history that has lasted for hundreds of years? Is the family as bad as the reports say? Initially, Baron really just needed to choose a newspaper to publish the novel Downton Abbey. But when he happened to encounter the Independent incident, he began to change his mind and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to buy the newspaper directly, in addition to being able to use the novel Downton Abbey to boost newspaper sales to a certain extent, just like when Gene Yong serialized martial arts novels and Ming Pao in order to save it. In addition, being able to own a national newspaper like the Independent, even if the worst-case scenario requires continuous blood transfusions, can play a huge role in expanding the family's voice and influence, and based on the situation of the Independent, it is not difficult to buy it now. It is just that the price needs to be negotiated. In Baron's previous life, after several years of hard work, I&M finally sold the newspapers The Independent and the Sunday Independent to a wealthy Russian businessman born in Klobo for £1. Even such a person can be sold, let alone Baron, who is the Duke of England. Moreover, The Independent and the Sunday Independent were not the first British newspapers to be sold to each other for £1. Before that, the London Evening Standard was also sold to the wealthy Russian businessman for £1. Some newspapers even revealed that under these £1 transactions, the British media group, which had dumped the burden, not only required the other party to bear responsibilities and debts, but also privately paid more than £10 million in compensation. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 46 Cooperation Methods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I have some thoughts about the Independent, Your Highness. You can tell me anything you have in mind, Laura. After separating from the editor-in-chief of the Independent and returning to DS Capital's office, Baron encouraged her after hearing Wong Wanting's words. It is worth mentioning that Canary Wharf is very close to the City of London. It was originally rebuilt to solve the crowded office situation in the city. Due to the settlement of many financial, multinational companies and media, Canary Wharf has become known as the second financial city. Since Your Highness the Duke is planning to acquire the Independent, why not entrust this matter to a firm? After all, if it is a firm as large as the Big Four, it will have a better understanding of the financial situation of many companies. After hearing what Wong Wanting said, Baron understood many of her subtexts. Don't be fooled by the so-called professional ethics of many European and American companies. In fact, when it comes to interests, they are more flexible than anyone else. The most typical one is the largest financial fraud case in history that broke out last year, involving Enron's financial fraud amounting to $60 billion. In this incident, Enron used a series of fraudulent means to inflate its revenue and profits and deceive investors and regulators. Enron's financial fraud was so clever that it not only deceived regulators and investors, but also deceived the company's internal executives and board members. The person who helped Enron carry out financial fraud was Anshinda, one of the big 5 accounting firms in the world, but after that, because of the bad influence, Anshinda's credibility was ruined, and the Big 5 became the Big 4. And HSBC, one of the largest banks in the UK, has privately leaked confidential customer information not once or twice. Therefore, the implication of Wong Wanting's words is that almost all firms now have the business of helping companies with mergers and acquisitions. At the same time, they are also responsible for the financial audit of many companies. Moreover, during the acquisition process, the financial status of the target company needs to be audited. Hiring a firm to perform these tasks can be said to be a one-stop service. Of course, the more well-known a firm is, the higher the commission it charges, but judging from the final results, these commissions are definitely worth the money. Then I'll leave this matter to you, Laura. Choose a firm and give me advice on acquiring the Independent. If it's suitable, you can contact the other party and start negotiations. I have been looking forward to a frank conversation with you, Your Highness. That's why I'm here today. To be precise, this was Baron's 4th meeting with Ian, but after getting enough information about King's Cross, he was ready to have a good talk with him. perhaps you have also heard the news about the King's Cross renovation plan, but I need to state that in any case, at this point, I have the goodwill to cooperate with you and your family in good faith, including the previous purchase of storage. The gas tank plot suggestion is also to help your family get through this. Regarding Viscount Butte's statement, Baron wisely did not pursue it further. By now, these are no longer important. And frankly speaking, regarding the renovation plan for King's Cross, although the Kenton District Government has submitted an application to the City Council, it has not yet been finalized. After all, it involves funding for the construction of public areas, and no one knows what is needed. We can't have high expectations for their efficiency no matter how long they pull. Having said this, Ian spread his hands. It may well be that we need to be prepared to wait a few years before construction starts on those sites. But in any case, in the face of the increasing shortage of office buildings and residential buildings in Greater London, the transformation of King's Cross is bound to need to be carried out, isn't it? This is the only place in London that can face major development. Viscount Butte fully agreed with Baron's words. I agree with that, and that's why I'm betting on this. So if it's a collaboration, how do you want it to work? Faced with the question raised by Baron, Viscount Butte said. Your Highness the Duke, your family now owns a land of about 6 hectares with abandoned gas storage tanks. Although it is industrial land, in the entire King's Cross reconstruction plan, the location of that land is relatively good. According to the information we have received, the entire King's Cross area renovation plan currently expected will not cover more than 30 hectares. My partners and I are expected to have more than 10 hectares of land within this range. Therefore, we have joined forces and will hold more than half of the land in the entire King's Cross area renovation plan. If these are removed, King's Cross Station and Street Pancras Station, as well as the public realm planned by the government, you can say that we have been able to take a leading role in this transformation plan. As far as Baron knows, the total area of land owned by Viscount Butte is only 5.5 hectares, and according to what he said and the information Baron obtained. Have you reached cooperation with the Coal and Grain Merchants Association? Faced with Baron's question, Viscount Butte showed a meaningful smile. You will know this after we reach cooperation, Your Highness the Duke. Then tell me your proposal for cooperation, Lord Butte. Actually, there are 2 ways. The first is that your gas storage tank land can maintain the independence of the transformation, join our alliance, and advance and retreat together. The second is that we form a joint venture real estate development company together to use the land value and investment by allocating shares based on factors such as funds and other factors. This company has a great chance of becoming the master developer of the entire King's Cross area renovation plan, and can also obtain orders for other areas, including the renovation of public areas. Viscount Butte paused, looked at Baron and said. Considering that the entire King's Cross area renovation plan will be comparable to the urban renewal plan of Canary Wharf, it may last 10 to 20 years in phases. Therefore, I still suggest that Your Highness the Duke, you participate in the joint venture. After all, whether negotiating with the government or surrounding resident groups, a strong whole can guarantee the interests of U.S. landowners. Baron and his family did not have much experience in real estate development before, which is what he lacked at this time. According to Viscount Butte, according to business analysis, the biggest economic benefits from the real estate renovation in King's Cross are the construction of office buildings for rent or sale, followed by high-end residential apartments, and the rest include shops and other commercial facilities. But the problem is that neither the government nor the resident groups in the area will allow them to build too many office buildings and high-end residences. They must control these within a certain proportion and provide a considerable amount of low-cost housing. Rent and other guaranteed housing. The question arises. If landowners like them go their own way, then for the sake of economic interests, they will definitely be willing to build office buildings and high-end residential buildings. Who will be willing to build low-rent housing? And if everyone rushes to pursue economic interests like this, the final transformation plan will inevitably be impossible to pass. Therefore, it is the most acceptable way to unite various landowners, at least most of them, and distribute the transformation of these lands through shares, no one will argue about which piece of land to build which building. There will be unified planning. The final benefits will be distributed according to the initial shares, and there will be no disagreements. As for the landowners who say they don't want to join in, that's easy to do. There is no need to force the other party. After leading the construction of this renovation plan, which plots will have more appreciation potential due to planning, and which plots will be built near low-rent housing, so that they are not suitable for building high-end offices. District and high-end residential conditions, these can be adjusted by the joint venture company. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 47 Securities Lending and Short Selling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hearing this, Barron also admitted that what Viscount Butte said this time was indeed sincere. Moreover, establishing a joint venture real estate development company and joining it seems to be the most reasonable way. One more question, Lord Butte, how are the shares in the company distributed? After joint consultation, there will be a result that everyone can accept in the end, Your Highness the Duke, and we have enough time to do this. You have to know that such a plan with such a large geographical scope and time span it's not something that can be achieved overnight. Mutual trust will be the basis for all of this to be possible. Viscount Butte smiled and said, after all, we need more landowners to join us, and we also provide other options. But no matter what, Your Highness, your land cannot be ignored. Okay, Your Excellency, I am willing to join your cooperation plan in principle. I just hope that we can continue to be honest. Whether it is developing the family's traditional industry, acquiring the independent newspaper, or even establishing a presence in King's Cross, Barron now needs a lot of capital. Therefore, after having this conversation with Viscount Butte, he went to the financial city and prepared to concentrate on completing this short-term short sale. Boss, Barclays Bank has agreed to our short selling this time. We only need to use 10% margin, but they will monitor our account situation. Once we face the critical point of funds, we need to increase the margin in time, otherwise we will force close the position. Okay, I understand. Notify your team and get ready to work. The Nasdaq market in the United States opens at 9:30 a.m. New York time, London time is 5 hours ahead of New York time, so 2:30 p.m. in London is exactly 9:30 a.m. in New York time that day, which is when the Nasdaq stock market starts trading. Daisy, notify Barclays that we need to borrow £50 million worth of Airgate shares. Yes, this time Barron's is planning to short sell Airgate, a subsidiary of Sprint, the third largest operator in the United States. Its current market value is around $2 billion and its stock price is close to $40. The reason why he chose to short this company's stock is because when Barron was looking for short-term opportunities, he finally remembered that this company was one of the stocks with the largest decline in the U.S. stock market this year, and Airgate stock started to fall just recently. Boss, Barclays Bank has agreed to our application to borrow Airgate shares and is already providing securities lending for us. Barron looked at the time and saw that today was July 4th. Fortunately, although the time was tight, it was still not too late. As one of the largest banks in the UK, Barclays has close cooperation with the Nasdaq stock market, so their securities lending operations are very fast. In less than an hour, DS Capital received notification that the other party's securities lending was completed. At this time, they had borrowed the corresponding number of Airgate shares and could sell them. Start selling these stocks, pay attention to the rhythm, and minimize the impact on the stock price, but I need to sell all these Airgate stocks in my hand within 2 days. Okay, boss. Although Daisy didn't say much, her expression was not relaxed. Today is Thursday, and Barron gave her only 2 days, Thursday and Friday. You must know that the market value of Airgate at this time is about $2 billion. It is impossible to sell about $75 million worth of shares in 2 days without affecting its price. The exchange rate of pound sterling to US dollar at this time is 1.5 million pounds, 10% deposit, leveraging assets of up to $75 million. But there is no way. Baron himself was somewhat temporary when he decided to go short this time, and the time window given to him was already very short. However, he also regarded this operation as an assessment of Daisy's team. After all, after this, he will have more and larger securities investments, which will require a highly skilled trading team. Bonnie, you are so beautiful today. This is a gift for you. Seeing the jewelry box that Baron took out, Bonnie looked surprised. May I take a look at it? Certainly. Wow, that's beautiful, thank you, Baron. Opening the jewelry box, Bonnie saw a silver-white earring studded with diamonds inside. She happily said to Baron, her eyes filled with joy, speaking of which, since coming to this time and space, Baron has only had close contact with Aurora, but it seems that she was really angry last time. After leaving Baron's apartment, she claimed that she was leaving London. After staying home for a while, Baron didn't even reply to his text messages and phone calls, since he no longer had this friend. For the time being, after having a little leisure time, Baron thought of asking Bonnie to meet. It wasn't that he had ignored this beauty before, but it was just that Baron was busy with work and Bonnie. The same is true, she has been very busy at the TV station recently. In order to have a holiday later, Bonnie can be said to have concentrated a lot of work on this period of time. Moreover, she had to continue writing after work. Even her cousin, Viscountess Chris, complained to Baron that she often hung up on Bonnie after a few words on the phone. Seeing as you have lost some weight, Bonnie, you should pay more attention to rest. I will. I'm a little sorry today, Baron, for asking you to wait until now before I get off work. I just got off work not long ago. We have just the right time. At this point, Baron did not lie to her. The Nasdaq trading ended and it was already 9 o'clock in the evening in London. Baron happened to pick up Bonnie after finishing today's selling transaction. In general, DS Capital's results in selling Airgate shares today were pretty good. About 1.83 million shares were sold today, and more than 1 million shares were sold today. However, Airgate's share price only dropped from the initial $41 to about $38. The current buying demand for this stock is still relatively strong. Also in the second quarter financial report, when most telecom stocks were underperforming expectations, Airgate stated that its users were steadily increasing, making the company one of the few telecom stocks that did not fall at the time. But wait until this Saturday, an announcement that will shock investors will come out. Dear Bonnie, I found a French restaurant in Mayfair. It tastes pretty good. I can go there and try it today. I've already reserved a seat. That's great. I have to say, I've had enough of the food from the TV station these days. When the Rolls-Royce took the two to Mayfair and arrived at the restaurant Baron mentioned, Bonnie discovered that Baron had not just reserved the location, but had directly booked the entire restaurant. At this time, only meal service is provided for the two of them. This is such a surprise, Baron, I feel like I'm in a dream. Seeing the table surrounded by flowers, Bonnie watched the waiter pour the red wine into the decanter. She felt like she was already intoxicated before she even started drinking. As long as you like it, Bonnie. You have to be busy with work and complete writing during this period. It is really hard, and the quality of those novels is so high that they have been loved by all readers. I also enjoy it. I haven't experienced this feeling of creating the lives of many characters for a long time. Sometimes I feel that my writing seems to be observing the lives of those characters, or even having conversations with them. This kind of feels good. The dinner between the two began with the novel Downton Abbey that Bonnie was writing. Baron also learned about the progress of Bonnie's writing at this time. The entire first Downton Abbey, at this time she has written most of it, and she estimates that she will be able to finish the rest after going to Chatsworth Manor again in the past few days. I have a few days off starting this weekend. I have been missing my previous life at Chatsworth Manor. In addition, I have accumulated some questions that I need to ask Mr. Shawn and Ms. Riley for the rest of the novel. Please tell me, my novel starts from Chatsworth Manor, and I particularly hope to end the first part in this manner. This is perfect, isn't it? It happens to be the weekend, and my work can come to an end. I can go to the manor with you to stay for a few days. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 48, just the beginning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a romantic dinner, when the two walked out of the restaurant, drizzle fell. At this time, Baron was rare and did not curse the weather in London. Instead, he felt that the light rain was appropriate for the occasion. The umbrella in the Rolls-Royce came in handy. Baron held the umbrella for Bonnie. The girl turned to his side, and the two of them were close to each other. When Baron put his hand around Bonnie's waist, it felt like a firm squeeze. Even though it was raining, Baron felt that he could accompany him all the way back to the apartment. Of course, this is just a thought. After all, it is easier to perform in the back seat of a Rolls-Royce. The two of them were in a good mood tonight and drank a bottle of red wine together. Although Bonnie didn't drink much, just 2 drinks, her face was already very rosy as she sat next to Baron. The Rolls-Royce was driving on the streets of London on a rainy night. Looking out at the street from the car window, Baron suddenly had a wonderful feeling of time and space intersecting, but the girl in his arms at this moment was extremely real. At this time, Bonnie was also looking at Baron with her emerald green eyes. The two looked at each other. The girl's eyes were a bit hazy and almost overflowing with affection. Needless to say, Baron understands that what he needs to do now is. The two people gradually got closer and finally kissed each other. This kiss was like the rain in London at night, continuous and long. I like you, Baron. Me too, dear Bonnie. Ms. Moore, I specially prepared breakfast for you. You can eat it first and then talk. The next morning, when Yulia came to Baron, she was taken aback by his enthusiasm. While the Duke hummed and read the newspaper that Ramos brought, last night, in the Rolls-Royce, Baron and Bonnie could be said to be on the verge of a fight. However, when he wanted to go further, Bonnie's performance was not as brave as when she confessed her love. Somewhat reserved. Baron, how about this first? I think something happened to us at Chatsworth Manor. Although Baron had reached a certain critical point at that time, could he refuse such a request from the girl he liked? Even with a little regret, Baron finally sent Bonnie back to her apartment, but he was even more looking forward to the upcoming trip to the manor with the girl. Yulia didn't eat much. She just ate a piece of bread and drank a glass of milk. She wiped her mouth gracefully and began to tell Baron about her progress. Your Highness, according to the communication with Miss Laura, we have contacted PwC, and they will formulate strategies for our acquisition of the Independent, as well as subsequent negotiations. Before the acquisition negotiations are officially launched, the other party will contact us. You meet to discuss related matters. I hope they will move faster. I hope there will be results within a month. In fact, it depends on the price you have in mind, Your Highness the Duke. For this kind of acquisition, faced with a mess like the Independent, it is not surprising that the negotiations will last for several months. At least PwC should show their value, shouldn't they? I'm not optimistic about this. Yulia did not continue talking about this. She turned to the matter in King's Cross. Right now we have 3 parcels of land under discussion in King's Cross, as I mentioned to you before. The remaining parcels of land in private hands there are slightly scattered, no more than 1 hectare. In King's Cross, Baron had just had a conversation with Viscount Butte and would consider whether to cooperate depending on the situation. But regardless of the outcome, it is necessary to obtain more land. After all, it will be more difficult and more expensive to buy land in other areas of London. The 3 pieces of land that Yulia is talking about now all cover an area of less than 1 hectare. One of them is less than 300 meters away from King's Cross Station, covering an area of about 0.8 hectares, and the other 2 pieces of land cover an area of 0.75 and 0.5 hectares respectively. The plots are all located on the other side of the Regent River, across the river from the abandoned gas storage tank site. Current land prices in King's Cross, such as residential sites, are generally under £3 million per hectare. Consider that 10 years later Google bought a roughly 1 hectare site in the area for £6.5 million. If so, the land here can still achieve a relatively large appreciation in the future. After all, the location of Google's land is already slightly away from the center of King's Cross, and as a well-known internet giant, their purchase of land to build a headquarters building will promote the surrounding land, and they will naturally receive corresponding discounts. The original buildings on these 3 pieces of land are all very old. They were either vulgar dancer clubs or almost abandoned old apartments. However, the other party's asking price is not low, and we are still negotiating. Speed up the process and avoid long nights and dreams. Let's negotiate at £3 million per hectare, with a maximum premium of 10%. This is a bit high. Of course I would like the price to be as low as possible, but sometimes time is more important. In the afternoon, when the Nasdaq stock market opened, the opening price of Airgate stock increased slightly from yesterday's closing price of around $38, and finally opened at $38.5. A total of about 1.83 million Airgate shares were borrowed, and 1 million shares were sold yesterday. Today, DS Capital's task is to sell the remaining 830,000 shares. It was also because of the experience of selling nearly 1 million shares of Airgate stock in one trading day yesterday. Today, the team led by Daisy is selling stocks at a more proficient pace. The performance of Airgate stock is still strong. I don't know where the buying orders are, but the performance is active. 500,000 shares of stock were sold, and the price only dropped by $3. When they suspended the selling for observation, the stock price even dropped. A slight rebound. The situation is a bit ominous. The buying below is decreasing and the price support is weakening. After dinner, Baron suddenly heard Daisy's slightly surprised voice. How much stock do we have left? About 100,000 shares. Baron said directly without any hesitation. Don't worry too much, just clear out our stocks. Following his words, Daisy immediately issued an order, and the trend of Airgate stock on the market immediately began to fall. The previous sale of 500,000 shares of Airgate stock only reduced its price by $3, but now the sale of 100,000 shares of Airgate stock instantly reduced its price by $5, with the stock price falling below $30. All our stocks were sold, with an average price of $37.70. Following Daisy's words, Baron breathed a sigh of relief. Within 2 days, Airgate stock dropped from around $40 to $30, a drop of up to 25%, which also caused confusion in the market. In the later period, the price of Airgate stock hovered below $30 for a while, and then returned to above $30. However, here, the rise was weak, and it fluctuated up and down at $30. Finally, Airgate closed at 30.22. Prices in the US dollar closed higher, ending the week. After the Nasdaq stock market closed, based on the closing price, DS Capital's position in Airgate stock had a floating profit of more than $10 million. Of course, Baron knows that the current floating profit is entirely based on the fact that they sold a large number of Airgate shares in the short term. At least most of it was caused by this, but the borrowed stocks will eventually be returned. If there are no other factors, the price will still rise when they buy the stocks. Such a result may not only make them no profit, but even cause losses, but Baron is not worried at all, because he knows that the real exciting moment has not yet come, and next week will be the highlight. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 49 Repair Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Saturday, July 7th. On this morning, the Rolls-Royce spray-painted with the crest of the Duke of Devonshire family, after picking up Bonnie, was on the road to Chatsworth Manor. When she approached Chatsworth Manor, Bonnie saw the familiar scenery with a smile on her face. Baron, look, there's a little deer over there. No, there's a group of them. They're in the woods. They're so cute. It can be seen that Bonnie is in a great mood when she comes here again. For Baron's personal assistant Wong Wanting, who was sitting in the passenger seat at this time, this was her first time in such a magnificent aristocratic manor. It was not like she had never visited this kind of British aristocratic manor in the past, but those manors pale in comparison to Chatsworth. With more than 100 rooms, Chatsworth Manor can be regarded as the second largest manor building in the UK in terms of scale. As for the first place, it is Blenheim Palace, also known as Churchill Manor, owned by the Churchill family of the famous British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. It is the only manor called palace in the UK. Churchill Manor was built by Queen Anne in order to thank John Churchill, the ancestor of British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, for his military exploits in the Battle of Blenheim. It was given to the first Duke Churchill, so it was named Palace to show his sincerity, a gift from the Queen. Does it sound sincere? Unfortunately, the Queen died in the middle of the construction, and the financial chain was broken. The first Duke had to pay for it out of his own pocket to continue the construction for many years, and the family almost went bankrupt. Your Excellency, you are finally back. The Rolls-Royce stopped at the door of the mansion. The gilded iron door of the manor mansion was wide open. The butler Sean and a group of servants greeted Baron at the door. Baron gave Sean a hug affectionately. Butler Sean, you look very good today. Although he was slightly startled by Baron's hug that did not conform to the traditional aristocratic etiquette, the smile in the eyes of the butler Sean could not be hidden. Hello, Mr. Sean, we meet again. Bonnie saluted butler Sean and said happily. Welcome to Chatsworth, it's great to see you again. Entering the mansion of Chatsworth Manor, both Bonnie, who had been here once, and Wong Wanting, who was here for the first time, were shocked by the luxury inside. As soon as you enter the hall, you can see magnificent murals around and at the top, depicting the life of Julius Caesar. After passing through the hall, you enter the dazzling sculpture gallery. The most eye-catching one is a sculpture of a girl wearing tulle. This sculpture is extremely famous and was created by the 19th century Italian sculptor Raffaele Monti. It is called a veiled Vestal Virgin. The gauze on the head of the girl's sculpture is as thin as cicada wings, and the carving of the entire sculpture is amazing. Baron called the butler Sean to the study to discuss matters. Bonnie, who had already been here once, took Wong Wanting to continue to visit the Chatsworth Manor mansion, including the Queen's bedroom and dressing room when the ancestors of the Devonshire family were ordered to imprison Queen Mary. When Queen Victoria was 13 years old and still a princess, she attended the first formal dinner in her life at the North Wing restaurant, which marked the princess' official entry into the adult social world. The first Duke of Wellington, who defeated Napoleon at Waterloo, stayed in the bedroom when he visited Chatsworth Manor with Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. This was the bedroom carefully designed for him by the 6th Duke of Devonshire at the time. The walls were decorated with exquisite Chinese-style wallpaper, which was very fashionable at the time. It can be said that many well-known British historical figures have left their mark on Chatsworth. Butler Sean, I wonder if you have asked someone to calculate how much it would cost if our Chatsworth Manor, including the mansion and gardens, were to be completely repaired. That this is one of Baron's main purposes for returning to Chatsworth this time. When he came here before, he had already discovered that many places in the manor were obviously a little old. Moreover, although the manor has undergone some modern renovations, wires and networks have only been installed in some rooms, which is still far from the convenient modernization that Baron hoped for. After understanding what Baron meant, Butler Sean said. Your Majesty the Duke, in fact, our manor has only undergone some partial repairs and renovations over the years. The entire mansion has more than 100 rooms. If it is like you said, all the rooms and halls, as well as the outer walls, plus if the gardens and some roads are completely renovated, it will probably cost tens of millions of pounds or even more. For specific figures, we need to hire a professional agency to estimate. Then let's make an estimate first, Butler Sean. Are you really prepared to do this? Your Majesty, this will probably be a very large expenditure. Yes, but whether it will be carried out immediately depends on getting specific figures. After all, Chatsworth has been around for too long and always needs thorough repairs. I hope it will continue to be in its best condition. As you command, Your Majesty the Duke. Since 1894, the British government has imposed heavy taxes on the nobility, with the highest inheritance tax rate reaching 80%, this turned the manor from a symbol of power in the past into a hot potato for the established nobles. In addition to the high inheritance tax, the daily maintenance of the manor was also expensive. Many nobles had to sell their manor homes and collections of art to make up for their financial shortfalls. The heirs who choose to stick to the manor are often miserable. They guard the mansion and the house full of treasures, but are burdened with huge debts and live a life of poverty. Some even claim to be poorer than beggars. If it's so hard, why not sell the estate? Perhaps this is the commitment of the British nobles to their ancestors and their persistence in tradition. Since 1900, 1,200 manors have been demolished in England alone. In 1950, manors were being demolished at the fastest rate in history, with one manor disappearing every 5 days across the UK. Some lucky manor owners handed over full rights to their properties and converted them into museums, schools, hospitals, or prisons, which was a not-so-bad confession to their ancestors. Most of the manors have been demolished or abandoned. At first, the awareness of cultural relic protection in England was not strong, and the people did not feel it was a pity that the manor was demolished. Perhaps they were also happy that the old landlord was overthrown. However, in 1974, an exhibition called The Ruined Manor at the Victoria and Albert Museum made the British people aware of the historical significance of the manor. In this climate of public opinion, the National Trust, a charity that protects British cultural heritage, has become a refuge for British estates. However, there are only a few manors that can generate income through open tours or other activities. Most manors require continuous investment in repairs and maintenance, so they have become a heavy burden for these related non-profit organizations. If someone is willing to buy it, they will often sell it to the other party at a low price, and only ask them to ensure the maintenance of the manor. Even if they sell it for £1, they need to bear millions of repair funds. It can be said that compared with most manors, Chatsworth Manor is lucky, in addition to the fact that the Devonshire family has always stayed here and never given up their ancestral business. As the second largest manor in England, it has many shining deeds in British history. It is also easier to attract tourists. Now Barron hopes to make Chatsworth Abbey more topical through the Downton Abbey novel and subsequent film and television works based on it. At the same time, a thorough renovation will be carried out here so that it can be presented to the world in a more perfect manner. Of course, carrying out such repairs requires a lot of funds. That is to say, the purchasing power of the pound is still very strong, the exchange rate is also at a high level, and the cost of raw materials and labor, including the cost of experts for such ancient buildings, has not yet been reached. Extremely exaggerated. Otherwise, if it were 20 years later, the cost of a complete renovation of a manor of this size would easily reach hundreds of millions. For example, the 10-year renovation of Buckingham Palace 20 years later is expected to cost £369 million. Of course, Buckingham Palace is much larger than Chatsworth Manor, with nearly 800 rooms, but even now, large-scale repairs and modernization of Chatsworth Manor would probably cost at least £15 million. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 50. I Am a Genius. You are listening at novelfull.audio. By the way, Butler Sean, last time I borrowed £100,000 from the manor, I will transfer £500,000 to the previous account. In addition to finding the most professional organization to outline plans for a complete renovation of the manor, in addition to the estimate, I hope you can find someone to take care of the clothes in the room last time and keep them in a safe place. They will be useful in the near future. I will do as you ask, Your Highness. Just after Barron finished talking to Butler Sean about these things, he received a call from Daisy. Looking at Daisy's name on the phone, Barron had already guessed the purpose of the call, and couldn't help but feel a little expectant and excited. After connecting the phone, Barron immediately heard Daisy's excited shouts from the receiver. This was really rare for her, who was always calm and calm. F***K. Barron. How did you guess that? Or did you discover something in your research on Airgate? This is incredible. Calm down, Daisy, this is not like you. At this time, Barron calmed down. Can you tell me what happened now? Barron could hear that Daisy took a deep breath on the phone, and then said in a somewhat calm voice, This morning, I saw the news from Bloomberg. Airgate PCS issued an announcement stating that due to statistical errors, their company's financial report for the last quarter had a major error, increasing the loss by $15 million, and due to the harsh market environment, will reduce growth expectations for this quarter. Such a major mistake. I'm afraid it's not really an unintentional mistake. That's what they said anyway, but I'm afraid the SEC, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, will not let them go so easily. I have sent the relevant information to you via email, Baron. Okay, continue to pay attention, Daisy, and notify me in time if there is any news. Just when Baron was about to hang up the phone, he heard Daisy's voice. Baron, did you really foresee something in advance when you decided to short Airgate? How did you do it? Why was your mood so bland just now, as if you had expected it? Daisy, I've said it a long time ago, maybe you should believe it a little more now, I'm a genius. Laura, where's Miss Bonnie? But when Baron walked out of the study and saw Wang Wanting in the corridor on the second floor, he asked in Chinese, since coming to this time and space, he has been using English. When the two communicate privately, he prefers to speak Chinese. At least this will give him a sense of his previous life. Wang Wanting took Baron's habit of talking to her in Chinese from time to time as if he was looking for opportunities to practice Chinese, but she also admitted that the other person's Chinese was indeed better than the Mandarin of many Chinese people. More standard, no accent at all. Your Highness the Duke, after Miss Bonnie took me around the manor, she went back to her room to write. Are you looking at these murals? That when Baron came over, Wang Wanting was staring at the mural hanging on the wall of the corridor, so Baron asked this question. Yes, Your Highness the Duke, I heard from Miss Bonnie that these murals are portraits of members of the Devonshire family from past generations. When I looked at these portraits just now, I seemed to be able to feel the rich history of the entire manor and the family. At this time, Baron and Wang Wanting were standing in the corridor, with the dome shining directly above their heads, looking at the members of the Devonshire family in front of them, as if they were experiencing time travel. Laura, how did you feel after visiting the manor? It has a sense of history, luxury and weight, especially the works of art. I never thought that I could see Da Vinci's paintings with my own eyes, hanging in an inhabited house. Sure enough, the aristocratic heritage is not just talk. Hearing Wang Wanting's admiration, Baron smiled faintly. At this time, they went down the stairs. Wang Wanting was one step behind Baron. Looking at the young and handsome Duke, in such a magnificent building, he looked even more like a prince. Actually, I entered Lucy Cavendish College in Cambridge. When I first came to England, I heard about the origin of the college and learned something about your family. Your Highness, it can be said that at that time, I was right. The Devonshire family were impressed. Then in Chinese terms, we are still very destined. It's just that at that time, I never thought that one day I would have such a face-to-face conversation with members of the Devonshire family and come to this legendary manor. Maybe this is really an arrangement of fate. Everyone's dinner was held in the restaurant in the north wing of the Chatsworth Manor House. The exquisite silverware on the table and the cherry-colored crystal cups could vaguely remind people of the grand banquets that had been held here. This restaurant was first built by the 6th Duke of Devonshire. Its splendor was not inferior to that of Buckingham Palace. When the 13-year-old Princess Victoria visited with her mother, the Duchess of Kent, the future Queen of England, held her first formal dinner in this restaurant. I have to say that this kind of story is very attractive to any woman, especially after Princess Victoria became Queen Victoria. She visited here again and still received banquets and entertainment here. Now that the girls are sitting here eating, they can't help but imagine what it was like at that grand and luxurious dinner with the Queen present. After dinner, Baron received a call from Daisy again. It was now afternoon in New York time, and Daisy told Baron that in response to the announcement issued by Airgate PCS in the morning, many investors had begun preparing to initiate compensation lawsuits, and the SEC had also responded to this and would target the company's last quarter financial report, and corresponding financial issues will be investigated. Affected by this incident, several financial companies have lowered their ratings on Airgate stock. I am afraid that after the market opens on Monday, the trend of this stock will be very exciting. In other words, basically by now, they have been able to confirm that their short selling of Airgate this time has been successful, and the final profit will depend on how low the price of the stock will fall. Bonnie, are you still writing? I asked Mr. Sean and Ms. Riley about some of the past aristocratic etiquette today, and now I'm going to sort them out. Baron, you seem to be in a good mood. Bonnie also saw the smile on Baron's face. She closed the notebook, stood up and said to him. Well, I just got some good news about my recent investment. Baron walked up to Bonnie and held her hand. The night is nice tonight, do you want to go out for a walk together? The scenery of the garden at night is very different from that during the day. After Bonnie came to Chatsworth Manor last time, Baron specially asked the housekeeper Riley to specially rearrange Baron's previous bedroom. This time, Bonnie lived here. Chatsworth Manor at night is different from the bright lights in the city. In the back garden, there are only a few lights on, making it look quiet and cold. Stepping on the stone road, Baron felt the breeze blowing on his face, bringing a bit of coolness. The shadows of the surrounding trees were mottled. The two walked to the center of the back garden, and the sound of gurgling water was particularly obvious in the silence. Bonnie was wearing a long dress, her long golden hair and skirt were fluttering in the wind, and her quiet green eyes looked like a fairy in mythology under the moonlight. At this moment, Baron couldn't help himself. He held Bonnie's hand and gently pressed it, and his arms were filled with sweet jade. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much.